Hello everyone, my name is Lara Vukovic and today I will be talking about the impact of censorship in the independent state of Croatia on the example of the film Lisinski from 1944. The film Lisinski was the first full-length sound film during the independent state of Croatia and in the history of Croatia as well. It was also the only full-length sound film during the regime. It was directed by Octavian Miletić. The screenwriter was Milan Katić. Vatroslav Lisinski was played by Branko Špoljar due to his physical resemblance to the main character. The film depicts the last 14 years of Lisinski's life, or the era of Illyrianism in Croatia. Vatroslav Lisinski was a Croatian composer. He was one of the founders of Illyrianism and the most memorable Illyrian composer. He was the founder of modern Croatian opera, Croatian Lied, and he also majorly developed choral and orchestral music. His birth name was Ignatius Fuchs. He was born to German Jewish family. Lisinski studied law and philosophy and played music only incidentally, his teacher being a notable Illyrian, Albert Striga. Under the influence of the Illyrian movement and the urging of Striga, he devoted himself to composing. Lisinski also decided to change his name to a literal translation, Ignis, meaning fire in Latin, and Fuchs, meaning fox in German. So this is the Croatization of his name to Vatroslav Lisinski, which dates between 1849 and 1850. In 1847, with Striga's help, he goes to Prague to study composition, but since he was too old, he was 27 at the time, he could not enroll as a regular student. Instead, he studied composition and instrumentation at the organ school privately. Lisinski returns to Zagreb in 1850 since it was not possible for him to take the final graduation exam at the Prague Conservatory, although even Count Jelačić vouched for him. He was a composer of first two Croatian operas, Love and Malice from 1846 and Porin from 1851. Due to his workaholic habits and health problems, he died very young, forgotten in Zagreb, and was only posthumously acknowledged. As mentioned, Vatroslav Lisinski was the most valued composer of the Illyrian movement. Illyrian movement dates from 1830s to early 1850s. Its name originated from the misunderstanding. At the time, it was thought that South Slavic peoples were descendants of the extinct Illyrians, natives of the Balkans. Goals of the Illyrian movement were to use a common literary language and spelling for all Southern Slavs, or so-called Illyrians, strengthening mutual cultural ties, increasing awareness of the community, and creating unique literature, all of which were revived in the pan-Slavic idea of Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. The founder of the Illyrian movement was known to be David Vondráček. He reformed spelling and introduced Čokavian dialect as a language standard. In 1830, he published Kratka osnova Horvatsko-Slavenskoga pravopisanja, or as a translation, Short Draft of Croatian Slavic Orthography. Literature of Illyrianism was exclusively characterized by patriotic lyrics, mostly Viges and Avoria. The Illyrian name was banned in 1843, however, it continued being in use until and seldom after the introduction of absolutism in 1849. Fast forward to the 20th century. After the dissolution of Austria-Hungary in 1819, Kingdom Yugoslavia was founded. Due to the Yugoslavian poor financial situation and inability to access modern recording equipment, there have been movies filmed in Kingdom Yugoslavia. However, those were only shorter silent films. After the German invasion of Yugoslavia in 1841, the independent state of Croatia was formed. Independent state of Croatia, or in Croatian Nezavisna država Hrvatska, was a puppet state of Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy. It was a one-party state by fascist Ustaša organization led by Ante Pavelić. Its goal was to show a real example of allies, by censorship and propaganda forcefully relating people to the regime. The media, meaning newspapers, film, radio, and music, all had a purpose of propaganda. New national identities were a byproduct of the Ustasha propaganda regime, also known as anti-Jewish propaganda. Ironically, government's goal was to appear to care about composers, music production, and culture in general. However, due to state's poor financial situation, as well as prescripting everything to suit the propaganda idea, this was unfortunately not the case. Cinematography of the era was struggling financially. In 1841, shortly after the new film directorate was formed, new rules have followed, meaning non-Croatian film companies were placed under supervision of special commissioners. Cinemas owned by Serbs and Jews were forcefully confiscated, and serious and appropriate advertisements that will highlight the content and meaning of the film objectively were imposed. Movies were considered false, misleading the public with text and images which were often unrelated to the movie itself, and considered to be so-called frivolous and dishonorable actions. Finally, the state recognized the great importance of the film and realized the enormous propaganda the potential that lies in it, and soon takes ownership of complete cinematography, production, distribution, and exhibition. Consequentially, films that were produced in countries at war with the state and its allies, meaning Germany, Italy, and Japan, were banned. Film Lisinski was premiered in Cinema Europa on 9th of April in 1944. The film shows last 14 years of Lisinski's life, the era of Illyrianism. Music was composed by Boris Papandopoulos. There were challenges of the soundtrack part, since Lisinski's instrumentation had to be retouched, in some places completely changed and adapted to the modern way of orchestration, and to the fact that the sound was recorded as well. The actors were mostly theater actors, which had hard time adjusting to cameras, which was often visible in the film. There are some elements of modern movies, such as Role of the Newsbearer, which was in this case of this film always Albert Striga, meaning Lisinski's teacher. The movie was filmed on authentic locations, for example National Theatre, Maksimir, Marija Bistrica, Samobor, Podsused, 252 locations in total. In 1981, the movie was found forgotten in an unmarked box in storage of Jadran Film under the name of Živeće ovaj narod, or This Nation Will Live. Restored copy and DVD were released in 2009, and Croatian newspapers Jutarnji List declared the movie the best Croatian release of the year. The question often posed at the time is why Lisinski's life was chosen as a plot of the film, since there were many plans to record a biopic about the leader Ante Pavelić, who would have been an obvious choice due to the nature and influences of the regime. Well, Lisinski composed at a time of great national turmoil and awakening of national consciousness. And since the frame tradition, culture, nationalism perfectly describes the new cinematography independent state of Croatia strive to, the regime remains one of the exceptions not recording a full-length biopic about the leader. According to Katic, the idea was to create a film that would documentally talk about the strength and value of Croatian culture, but the content would be accessible to all social groups. Regardless of awareness and accessibility to all social groups, the impact of censorship can be easily seen in the movie. It can be seen by Illyrian ideas and Lisinski's birth name being majorly censored in the film. Albert Striga, the newsbearer and manager, only calls him Nacek, nickname for his Jewish descendant name Ignaz, twice in the movie. The word Illyrian was also only mentioned twice and was mostly swapped with the term patriotic. The main highlights of the plot concerning Lisinski were his compositions and his poor health and poverty, which the audience could emotionally perceive. The impact majorly influenced by the films of superior film centers. The words Croat, Croatian, patriot were mentioned 6 times between the 8th and 10th minute of the film and were always greatly accentuated. The concern of other states in charge of independent state of Croatia can be exemplified by Milan Katic being investigated by Gestapo for choosing a Jew as the main character of the film. Pan-Slavic ideas of Illyrianism mentioned before were left out in the film due to opposing of independent state of Croatia. The independent state of Croatia was in poor financial state with no proper recording equipment. Zagreb, as the capital, did not own a film studio at the time, and film was shot in various locations instead. There were different opinions. By today's standards, the film is causing laughter with its artificial and stiff acting. The actors were unconvincing, they are glancing at the camera, and many critiques mentioned the main actor's passiveness for the good portion of the film. The film Lisinski was supposed to show that Croatians can also feature films, on the example of Germans or Americans, which was another attempt of the authorities trying to show how modern and up-to-date the state is, although financially they were not able to execute it without borrowing the equipment. Chief Ante Pavelić gave the approval of the film, however, he did not attend the premiere.
Moji zagorski purani ipak neka je vredio. Mnogo bolje izgledaš. Što si tako zamišljen?
Ilustrisime, ovdje kod vas je vrlo lijepo i spokojno. Tav sam obuzet time kako narod ovdje divno pjeva. Zapravo bi trebalo stvarati samo u tom duhu.
Vidiš, sinko, to sam ti ja već davno konstatirao. Nisam ja ništa htio govoriti. Neka naš mladi umjetnik sam dođe na temi. Mi je stara pamet. No najglavnije sam skoro zaboravio. Dobio si pismo iz Zagreba, ali nije ženski razlobnik.
Već dugo nisam ništa dobio.
Ko ti to piše?
Štriga mi piše.
Štriga? Jer kaj važno?
Vrlo je važno, Ilustrisime. Čujte. Naš vrli Demeter napisao je tekst za tvoju novu operu. Što kažeš na to? Opera će se zvati Porin ili oslobođenje Hrvata ispod franačkog ropstva. Junačka opera.
Divno, sjajno! A već druga hrvatska opera. Vi ste sjajni mladi ljudi. Učite dalje.
A drugo? Tvoj Štriga ti je uredio i osigurao potporu za glazbene nauke u Pragu. Preporučno pismo za kneza Rohana, pokrovitelja Praškog konzervatorija, napisat će ti na zamolbu Edvige, sam naš presvijetli ban.
Da moji zagorski purani ipak neka je vredio. Mnogo bolje izgledaš. Što si tako zamišljen?
Ilustrisime, ovdje kod vas je vrlo lijepo i spokojno. Tav sam obuzet time kako narod ovdje divno pjeva. Zapravo bi trebalo stvarati samo u tom duhu.
Vidiš, sinko, to sam ti ja već davno konstatirao. Nisam ja ništa htio govoriti. Neka naš mladi umjetnik sam dođe na temi. Mi je stara pamet. No najglavnije sam skoro zaboravio. Dobio si pismo iz Zagreba, ali nije ženski razlobnik.
Već dugo nisam ništa dobio.
Ko ti to piše?
Štriga mi piše.
Štriga? A jer kaj važnoga?
Vrlo je važno, Ilustrisime. Čujte. Naš vrli Demeter napisao je tekst za tvoju novu operu. Što kažeš na to? Opera će se zvati Porin ili oslobođenje Hrvata ispod franačkog ropstva. Junačka opera.
Divno, sjajno! ma već druga hrvatska opera. No, vi ste sjajni mladi ljudi. Učite dalje.
A drugo, tvoj Štriga ti je uredio i osigurao potporu za glazbene nauke u Pragu. Preporučno pismo za kneza Rohana, pokrovitelja Praškog konzervatorija, napisat će ti na zamolbu Hedvige, sam naš presvijetli ban.
Dobro da si kotliče.
Servus, Štriga. Što se dogodilo?
Kako sam se zadivao. Velike stvari, veliki događaj, moj Lisinski. Gaj dolazi u Zagreb. Naš veliki Hrvat, veliki narodnjak. Dočekat ćemo ga kako to dolikuje hrvatskoj mladeži.
Sjajno, Štriga. Ali što ćemo? Kako ćemo?
Slušaj, Nacek, dosta je tih tvojih spisa. Pa zar je to posao za tebe? Uvijek biti neki pisarčić?
Voli, Štriga. Što to radiš?
Pazi što ću ti kazati. U tebe je velik glazbeni dar. Taj mora u hrvatskom narodu doći do izražaja. Sad se moraš ozbiljno prihvatiti posla.
Nije to samo tako, dragi moj Štriga.
Tako i nikako drugačije.
Vidiš, amice.
Slušaj, ja ti jamčim, prodrijećemo. Demetar je napisao pjesmu u čast Gajeva dolaska. A ti ćeš tu pjesmu glazbi.
Ali, Štriga.
Slušaj. Prosto zrakom ptica leti. Prosto gorom zvijer prolazi. Ja da se lanci spet i dam tuđincu da me gazi. Šta kažeš? Te riječ, ta misao.
Daj mi da vidim. On ne voli mrijet prije, u tom naša krv ne bije.
Moj dragi, ti ćeš tu pjesmu glazbiti i to će biti prva hrvatska budnica.
Da? Imaš pravo. Ja se ne usuđujem. Vidiš, dragi Štriga, ja nisam još ništa za javno skladao. Bojim se da nisam tome dorastao. Istina, glazba je sav moj svijet, ali za tako svečanu zgodu.
Vatroslave, ti ćeš ovu pjesmu skladati. Samo ti. Pa ti si rođeni umjetnik.
Štriga, ti si zanesenjak. Ali ipak ću pokušati.
Moraš, Vatroslave, moraš. Stvorit ćemo velika djela. A sada te ostavljam tvojim muzama. Trgni se, Lisinski. Sad je trenutak. Pokazat ćemo svijetu što može hrvatska mladež. Doviđenja. Dobro da si kod kuće.
Servus, Štriga. Što se dogodilo?
Kako sam se zadihao. Velike stvari, veliki događaj, moj Lisinski. Gaj dolazi u Zagreb. Naš veliki Hrvat, veliki narodnjak. Dočekat ćemo ga kako to dolikuje hrvatskoj mladeži.
Sjajno, Štriga. Ali što ćemo? Kako ćemo?
Slušaj, Nacek, dosta je tih tvojih spisa. Pa zar je to posao za tebe? Uvijek biti neki pisarčić?
Voli, Štriga. Što to radiš?
Pazi što ću ti kazati. U tebe je velik glazbeni dar, a taj mora u hrvatskom narodu doći do izražaja. Sad se moraš ozbiljno prihvatiti posla.
Nije to samo tako, dragi moj Štriga.
Tako i nikako drugačije.
Vidiš, amice.
Slušaj, ja ti jamčim, prodrijećemo. Demetar je napisao pjesmu u čast Gajeva dolaska. A ti ćeš tu pjesmu glazbiti.
Ali, Štriga.
Slušaj. Prosto zrakom ptica leti. Prosto gorom zvijer prolazi. Ja da se lanci spet i dam tuđincu da me gazi. Šta kažeš? Te riječi, ta misao.
Daj mi da vidim. On ne voli mrijet prije, u tom naša krv ne bije.
Moj dragi, ti ćeš tu pjesmu glazbiti i to će biti prva hrvatska budnica.
Da? Imaš pravo. Ali ja se ne usuđujem. Vidiš, dragi Štriga, ja nisam još ništa za javno skladao. Bojim se da nisam tome dorastao. Istina, glazba je sav moj svijet, ali i za tako svečanu zgodu.
Vatroslave, ti ćeš ovu pjesmu skladati. Samo ti. Pa ti si rođeni umjetnik.
Striga, ti si zanesenjak, ali ipak ću pokušati.
Moraš, Vatroslave, moraš. Stvorit ćemo velika djela. A sada te ostavljam tvojim muzama. Trgni se, Lisinski. Sad je trenutak. Pokazat ćemo svijetu što može hrvatska mladež. Doviđenja, Vice.
Doviđenja, Striga.
Concerning the movie plot, the film was supposed to be a biopic. It was focused on the last 14 years of Lisinski's life during the era of Illyrianism, using patriotism terminology in the film. There are some plot holes concerning this, one of the most obvious examples being that Lisinski changed his name only 4 years before his death, although being called Vatroslav throughout the entire movie. This is the 14 years of his life. The film majorly ignores his childhood, family, and education due to his Jewish roots. Hence, one should really read Lisinski's biography to fill these plot holes. However, it was a perfect frame for a propaganda film. Albert Striga was falsely depicted only as a patriot, by film also leaving out his pan-Slavic standpoints. Although the film was financed directly from the state, it was of very poor quality for those times because of lack of equipment, which had to be borrowed from Vienna since independent state of Croatia had no sound recording equipment at the time. We can see two types of censorship concerning this topic. Firstly, the film was censored from the beginning, and it was decided what is allowed to be shown and what is not. Ante Pavelić, the head of state, ordered to film a movie which would show what great life artists living in the state have. However, the film was scripted from the beginning, the screenplay and the film had to be revisited by the authorities in various stages, and Pavelić had to watch and approve the movie before it reached the public. Secondly, the censorship that the film experienced in the Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, being completely forgotten for years, and the disapproval and inability to progress that Miletić, the film director, had to endure until 1991 when Yugoslavia was dissolved. Many people refused to work with him after directing the film Lisinski because he was considered pro-Ustasha, although he opposed to the idea and identified himself as politically neutral. As end remark, Lisinski's music is one of only a few things in a movie, other than romantic and comedic scenes, that has been changed to satisfy the audience. The example majorly used by the countries where films were superior to the Croatian ones at the time. Lisinski wasn't a composer that received formal music education during his formative years, therefore his music sounded exactly like that. It was empty and it would not be appealing to the audience of the film was supposed to attract, which was the reason why one of the most prominent composers of the time, Boris Papandopoulos, was hired to reorchestrate most of it. Regardless of the circumstances, reception, and the limitations, the film Lisinski remains one of the rare examples of a biopic where the regime leader was not the main focus of the film. This is shortly my bibliography, and I would like to thank you for your attention.